took a tangent. He started thinking about the issue. And so, even though he's in this debt, he started thinking about the fiqh issue, and then all of a sudden, the answer came to him. He realized what the solution was to the issue. So then he jumped up in the night, and they didn't have lights there, so he's just jumping up in the darkness. And he started shouting and screaming. I won't say he was dancing. I'm not going to say he was dancing, but he was moving around, just like people would say, who's the man? How do you say who's the man in Arabic? He said, Ayn al-muluk, where are the kings? He started moving around like this, saying, where are the kings? Where are the kings? Like telling them where are this. And his wife thought, he must have had one of these $1 million schemes to get all the money. So she said, what's wrong with you? And he said, don't you realize I've just figured out the solution to this fiqh issue? And then she went, like that. She was shocked at the situation that he was in, all this poverty, but the happiness that he had because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened up this mas'ala to him. And Abu Ubaid al-Qasim ibn Salam, rahimahullah ta'ala, he wrote the book Gharib al-Hadith. Al-Qasim ibn Salam wrote this book Gharib al-Hadith, and it took him 40 years to write the book. It took him 40 years to write the book, and he said in the days when he was writing the book, that perhaps he would be sitting with some scholars. And while he was sitting with them, they would be talking back and forth, and then he would listen to something, a gem that he would hear from one of the scholars, and then he would leave the situation. He would go, run home, open up his book, his manuscript, open up to the correct chapter, and write down, Qala, so-and-so, Abdullah ibn so-and-so, this point. And he would write it in the proper chapter. And he just got a gem to put in his book. And it took 40 years to complete the book. And he would say that he said, فَأَبِيتُ, he said, the entire night I would sleep with a grin on my face. I would be sleeping with a smile because of that issue that I just got and that gem that I just gathered from the scholars. And Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, subhanAllah, we hear the stories of Imam Nawawi and how he would write. SubhanAllah, they wrote books that I can, make sure that many of us will never read their books in our entire life. If we ever started to read them, we would never finish their books. Where did they get the time to learn the knowledge? And when did they get the time to write it? And I'm saying we could never read it. Just read it, go cover to cover. We couldn't do it. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala didn't go into a library, didn't go to sleep and have the knowledge evaporate into his head. This is how many of us think it happens. They said, I need to make dua for the knowledge, which is true, but you have to make the dua and then follow it up with action. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you. But to have the action, to have the dua and not the action, it doesn't work that way. And so Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he would spend, every day he would go to 12 different halaqat. Every single day. You're looking at 12 classes, morning to evening, and they were not the, feel-good type halaqas where the people go back, they really haven't written anything down and so on. You can see the knowledge that he gained from every single class. And then he would go from class to class studying what he learned. I remember in the University of Medina there was a student who used to sleep in class. You might have some of those students here, but I think you guys pay too much money to fall asleep in class. They don't pay, they get scholarships, so they sleep in class. So this guy, we had 5 classes a day, 5 days a week. That's 25 classes a week. And this guy slept for 25 classes a week, for every single week for the entire year. And I joke not, I exaggerate not. He slept for every class, and anybody who comes from Saudi Arabia know that people like this exist. Okay, so this guy, in the final class, the last week before the exams, there's always a designated person to ask the teacher to make the exams easy. خفف يا شيخ, make the exams easy, ya Shaykh. And it's always someone that'll confront the teacher and make a big issue out of it. So our Tawheed teacher came in, and this guy, he woke up and he said, خفف يا Shaykh. He cut him off and he said he was the person. He said, خفف يا Shaykh. So the Shaykh didn't realize who this guy was, and he felt kind of shy. He was put on the spot. And he's trying to make excuses, it's not in our hands, the university makes us make it hard and so on. But this guy, like we're saying, this is the only class he was ever awake. But even this class, he didn't give it up. After he made that statement, he went to sleep. He went to sleep in that class, and then the sheikh's talking, and then he turns around and he looks and the guy's sleeping. So he starts, knocking on the table, he starts going like that. He goes, Ya Na'im, O sleeping one. Ya man yuridu takhfif. O ye who's looking for an easy exam. Wake up. And it was a valuable lesson. It was a valuable lesson that if you want your exams to be easy, then we have to wake up. Inshallah ta'ala. A poet once said, وَقَائِلَةٌ أَنفَقْتَ فِي الْكُتُبِ مَا حَوَتْ يَمِينُكَ مِن مَالٍ فَقُلْتُ دَعِينِي. This is a woman, and unlike the sisters of our time, but she was a woman who used to tell her husband, and she would get mad at him, that he was spending all his money on books and spending everything in his right hand to buy these books. أَنفَقْتَ مَا حَوَتْ يَمِينُكَ مِن مَالٍ فِي الْكُتُبِ, right? That you spent all this in the books. He said, فَقُلْتُ دَعِينِي. So I said, just leave me alone. And then he said the second line, لَعَلِّي أَرَى فِيهَا كِتَابًا يَدُلُّنِي لِأَخْذَ كِتَابِي آمِنًا بِيَمِينِي. That perhaps in these books, I will find in it a book that will help me to take my book in my right hand on the Day of Judgment. Dear brothers and sisters, there's an icon of the American lifestyle. And in fact, when people overseas want to buy a sofa, they say, I want the American sofa. It's called Lazy Boy. It's called a Lazy Boy sofa. And I tell you not, I have a Lazy Boy sofa at home. And someone donated it to me. So, a Lazy Boy sofa. Now, subhanAllah, this is the icon. And so everybody, they like the Lazy. They don't even feel insulted by the name, because this indeed is their lifestyle. There was and of course, overseas they're trying to copy this American tradition. It's called in Arabic, Nadi at-Tarfih, which is amusement park, right? It's amusement park. Someone on a third floor had put up these, games and whatever games you can think of. They had it in this, they called it Nadi Tarfih, which should have been translated as amusement park. But I don't know who they got to do the translation, but he did a very good job. What he translated it was Distraction Club. He translated it as Distraction Club. I said, subhanAllah, I wanted to take a picture because he hit it right on the nail. The exact meaning of what these clubs and what these places do. And when I say club, it means a different thing. What will our excuse be in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when this knowledge that's fard upon us to learn, that we don't act upon it because we're following a certain soap opera and we can't miss our soap opera? Or someone has all these basketball games. You know how people buy season tickets? That means like they're going to go to how many, like 80 games in the entire year. They're going to watch all of them to go season tickets. And they're so happy to get these tickets. They make the television their life. They make these games their life. Amusements. What are you going to do in the summer? I'm going to buy a season pass to Six Flags so that they can go every single day and ride on these roller coasters. This is how the life goes. And indeed, this is a harb. It's a battle with shaitan. And indeed, when we talk about enemies, enemy number one is shaitan. And he leads his army of enemies. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna shaitan lakum aduwwun, fattakhiduhu aduwwa. That indeed the shaitan is your enemy, so treat him like an enemy. Don't treat him like a best friend. You always see in these cartoons that shaitan is always the good one, the one who takes them to have fun in hellfire. And you'll see this. They go up to paradise and it's someone just playing on harps, according to the Christians. But in hellfire, they're having a party, it's warm, and all the excitement is there in hellfire. And this is the tazeen. They make the people think that it's so beautiful to go to hellfire and to live this life. And so the shaitan in the Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says of his statement, قَالَ فَبِعِزَّتِكَ لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. The shaitan said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about him, Iblis said, بِعِزَّتِكَ, with your might, O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ, that I'm going to mislead every single one of them. Every single son of Adam, I will mislead every single one of them, except a selected people. He said, إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, except those servants of yours that are sincere to you. And so this is the battle with shaitan, inshallah. I wanted to tell you in just a few more minutes that are left in the khutbah, tell you some of the weapons the shaitan will use against you. Number one, in the fight against the shaitan, the first one is, and I didn't say lazy boy, I used the name of it in English, actually has Arabic meaning. It's called the lazy boy sofa. And sawfa in Arabic means what? It means to procrastinate.